No.
Welcome everyone, and thanks for being here for the BTC fall meeting. It's starting to feel like fall, isn't it? We've got air movers on. I very much apologize. We've been having a tiny little issue with our air conditioning, so help yourself to cool beverages, please. I'm Elaine with Boulder Transportation Connections. I hope by now most of you know our organization. We are the transportation management organization for the city of Boulder, which basically means we are here to help you, your staff, yourself, your friends with mobility options through Boulder. So trying to not just default to driving around town, but looking at the variety of choices we have in this awesome community for moving around. So who rode their bike today? I saw a few. Look at that. Okay, I think you guys just set a record. Thank you. Who rode the bus today? All right, not alone on that. Anybody carpool? Yes. Cool. So that is so great to see. What? Nice. Yeah, I walked from the bus, so I'm multimodal, right? Anyway, the BTC team, we are back up to 4-person staff, very exciting. We'll be doing more introductions shortly. But right now, super fast, I wanted to just go around the room and have you introduce yourself and who you are with. So can I start with you?
I'm Brian Rosenstein with RTD. Brandon Figliolino, RTD.
Transportation Advisory Board. Dr. Kitchen, BTC. Jeremy Hope, BTC, Boulder Chamber.
Will Shepherd, BTC.
Peter Marcus, Boulder City Council, and former president of Boulder School.
And John, I'm design, formerly representing that, but now I'm Martin Acres 3 RTD. Person Go-Tober.
Captain Morano, Cat Scott here. Ruth Carlin and Nico Pass with Johnny here. Nico Pass. Amy Stewart, I live in Boulder Meadows. Christina Davis, Boulder. Amber Sutherland, I'm with the Boulder County Fire Service Environment Program. Scott Junior, Boulder resident. Kirsten Bailey, Denmark.
Santa Clara, City of Boulder.
Mitch Beckett, I'm with Seattle.
Scott Hatfield, climate, transportation, air quality actors.
Lexi Davies, community sections. Mike Mill, community sections. Nicholas Bulwark, David I. Farm.
Jonathan Singer, Boulder Chamber.
Lloyd Hamilton, 29 Mall, and the BTC advisory.
Ryan Shearhart, Transportation Advisory Board, and I'm running the City Council on the for safe streets and transportation options for fire action.
Earl Brown, Boulder Group.
Will I consent or not?
James Perry, Zale.
Gary Scruggs, Colorado Rail Passenger Association. And
Please do, yeah, I got it, Arna. And
And
Any of Congress, City of Boulder, transportation, nice there.
do we get you, Alex?
yes,
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. It's just always nice to get a sense of who's in the room, who you're with, and helps with conversations as we move forward. With that, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Karen Worminghouse. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you again, Lance. Thank you all for being here. I'm Karen Worminghouse, Senior Manager of Transportation for BTC. And first thing I want to do is order business is let you all know we have 2 amazing people who have joined our team recently in the last couple of months. Darcy Kitching and Will Shepherd. They're up front here. So immensely pleased that they are both on our team. We're at full capacity, full strength now. We might even have there's more on our plate, so maybe we might have room for more. But Darcy and Will are super amazing. Should have made it through the last couple of months without them, or even today. So thank you, and Elaine for her steadfast keeping on too. So we're back up at 4 full team members, super excited. I think a lot of you right now, Darcy and Will, from various work that they've done in the community, they both live and work in Boulder. Will's been active with car share, most of my Colorado car share, Darcy's been active with the walk, commute program and school commuting and everything else. And you'll hear quite a bit more from Darcy in the future, but they are our 2 PDM outreach specialists. So those of you in the room will be interacting with all farmers quite a bit, but Will spearheads also our Boulder Junction EcoPass program. So anything related to Boulder Junction, both residents and employee EcoPasses. Will's your go-to guy, and he's becoming our resident expert on a new mobile ticketing system, which you'll hear more about as well too. So just super pleased, grateful that they are part of our team. You'll hear more from them and throughout this meeting. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and other good news. So I wanted to let you know we have, I think Danny's in the room. Yeah. So kudos to City of Boulder, Boulder County, and I'll say, give ourselves a pat on the back too. We did apply for an RTD, the PPP and the stand for Partnership Project Program, which was new starting next year. RTD has set aside $2 million to fund various partnership projects, specifically towards local mobility projects. And we are super pleased to announce that the Gunbarrel Shuttle project was one of the ones that was selected for funding. So this won't kick in, this won't start till next year, and it is a true collaboration. It's the City of Boulder, Boulder County, RTD all have stepped up in amazing ways. City of Boulder submitted the application and will be pooling together the funds and overseeing it. So major kudos, thank you, Danny, for all of your tireless work. And Boulder County is also assisting with funding through ARPA and RTD's funding. And this is a project that the Boulder Chamber has long been championing for, going on 3 to 4 years to try to meet the transit demands in Gunbarrel, particularly since when COVID hit and RTD did some service cuts, the 205 route in Gunbarrel was significantly reduced. So this will be a micro transit and on-demand service that will start. We're eyeing probably towards May of next year. But again, it's we couldn't have done it without the partners, City of Boulder, Boulder County, RTD. Thank you so much, and we're super excited for that. And we'll hear more to come on that as we start diving into the details of that project and actually getting geared up for work together. But yeah, question?
Can you explain a little more about this versus by mile? Exactly. If I live in Gunbarrel, I can call now, 15 minutes.
So
anywhere within that area?
Within the blue service area. So what it's designed for, say, like Bolt, and eventually when the bus rapid transit along the diagonal too, to have connections with that. So yeah, anywhere within that blue area would be the envisioned service area. And you would call or use a mobile app to then get transported within that service area. And it's not taking you from Gunbarrel to downtown Boulder, for instance, but within that area. So on-demand shuttle, but we've seen a lot. There's quite a few micro transits in service already, like in the region. This is becoming a very also popular thing and a very cost-effective way to meet the needs of very localized transit in a certain subsection. James, I don't know if Danny, do you want to say anything more on that?
No, I mean, that hits that well. As mentioned, I'm Danny O'Connor with City of Boulder. There's part of, I think we're gonna basically put the service out to bid later this year, just to select a provider, but really thinking about that on-demand opportunities to connect to the 205, which right now is it hubs at King Super, that was cut back during COVID, and so this is really to extend the reach within that whole zone, and then also connect to 119, the voltage is there, and that becoming 119 BRT, and just really get the whole zone covered, and both sides of 119 is what we're envisioning with it. But yeah, thanks. Looking forward to it.
I'm gonna keep going for now, just to, in the interest of making it through all our presenters, but if people do have questions, feel free to see me afterwards or at the very end. And then just other few quick updates. We made it through our function at Boulder Junction. Rain impacts, but it wasn't raining the entire time. Thank you to all of our partners who came on for that. We've been doing a series of 5 events in conjunction with Community Vitality. Function at Boulder Junction last week, September 14th was our biggest event. We had live music and performers and so forth. And the first half of the event, we didn't get too bad. Second half a little bit more, but thank you. Many of our partners are in the room. I really appreciate you sticking it out with us and persevering through that. And we have our final event, our final function at Boulder Junction. It's going to be October 11th. So mark your calendars for that. That'll be at Seal from 4 to 7 p.m. That's on a Wednesday. The theme is Electrify October. So please mark your calendars for that. I think those are my key updates. I'm going to pass it back over to Lee.
We realize it's hard to hear in the back of the room, so thank you, Jonathan, for being our AV man today. Has anybody here heard about Go-Tober previously? All right, and a few of you have participated in this. What's great about Go-Tober is, I know a lot of us are familiar with Bike to Work Day, but Bike to Work Day, we're asking folks to bike. In Boulder, we do say walk and bike. Go-Tober is about using any way of getting around for your travel that is not just single occupant vehicles. So you can still drive, but you know, we encourage you to share that ride with your friends. Flying scooters, telecommuting counts, busing, walking. What Go-Tober is a month-long challenge. We're asking folks, track the trips, get your business on board, challenge your colleagues to rethink that commute. Because one of the things I find is, if one has a car available, it's so easy to say, I'm just gonna jump in the car and take that trip. I've been living as a one-car family for a few years now, and I no longer have that ability to think, I'm going somewhere, I'm just gonna jump in the car. So, you know, it's taken a little more thought about, oh, to get to my place at this time, I need to leave my house at this time, to get to my bus. It's not that big a deal. You know, it works, and it means I've been out there walking or biking or doing something active, which is, I think, one of the great things about this area, that we have access to transit, we have options that can make it easy for, like, I love to bike one way, bus the other, because in the middle of the summer, it's too hot in the afternoon, the middle of the winter, it's too cold in the morning. But by combining two things, it makes it work. Anybody participating, it's a great business opportunity because you can then challenge your team. Our friends at RMI have done this in the past, and they're doing like scavenger hunts and other fun activities that engage their team. Like, let's get out and ride bikes around, or who's going to jump on the bus to go have lunch. You know, sometimes I think just thinking a little bit about how you get around even during the day is important, because we know some people don't really have a lot of options. If you are living in Greeley and coming to Boulder, there's not exactly a great bus that's doing that, right? So, but once you are here, can you get around within town, those options? So, as I said, this is a cool opportunity. So we're encouraging businesses sign up and then get your team. We are here to support you and your colleagues in this with encouragement, with, you know, whether you need us to come in and table and talk to people, because this is something BTC does all year round. If you have people who are trying to figure out commute, if you're trying to get more people signed up on transit passes, if you're trying to get more people, you know, just thinking about these options, we can help with that. So it's really quick and easy. You sign up, waytogo.org, Go-Tober, and then during the month, your team sign in, attach themselves to your business, and log those trips so that you can make sure People are tracking this and you are climbing up this scoreboard. And at the end, there's some great prizes for individuals and there's great media recognition available for businesses. So, as I say, reach out, let us help you, you know, and I say, carpool, vanpool, it's a great time to launch some of these kinds of programs too. But also, you know, I know with some businesses, there are people who are still telecommuting, those trips count as well. I gotta say, RMI, last time I saw you rocking this, a lot of the folks were doing it with those telecommuting trips. The other thing I like is you can log in every single day and say, today, this is what I did, you know, and daily. But you can also log in at the end of the week when you're doing your other tracking of whatever you did for the week. Here's how I got to work this week. You can't actually wait until the very end and do a whole month. I tend to encourage doing it at least twice within a month is very helpful. Any questions you have about signing up, let me know. We do have some posters and other collateral you can be putting up at your business if you're participating, but we're just really excited to see some folks participating in Boulder. Aurora Organic Dairy is one of the new businesses who will be participating this year, so we're excited about that. Questions, feel free to. Karen's got it.
What are some of the grand prizes?
You know,
Question.
yeah. I'll have to get back with you, I'm sorry.
I can share, I was looking at the website earlier, you could win the latest edition AirPods, a subscription to Spotify and a bunch of other tasks or other cool gifts.
Did you hear that? AirPods, Spotify, and some other really fun stuff that, you know, to help you on your commute, you know, if you're riding the bus, listen to your AirPods. If you're on your bike, I encourage. With that, I want to reintroduce Brandon, RTD, and here's some updates. There's one or two things have been going on at RTD.
Just a few things. Awesome. Let's see. Awesome. I'm gonna try not to throw this when I wave my hand in the air. No, definitely not. So my name is Brandon Figliolino. I manage the community engagement programming for RTD. And I am here to provide a few quick updates. We just finished our Zero Fare for Better Air summer. So show of hands, who rode the bus or the train for no cost during the month of July and August? Awesome, that's a great turnout. So we were really happy to offer that as part of the Colorado Energy Office grant that we received. And while that has ended, we have launched our Zero Fare for Youth initiative. So anyone 19 years old or younger is eligible to continue riding RTD transit services for no cost. This is in part of our new fare structure that was adopted by the board of directors over the summer as a way to really encourage our younger people to get on board, to try transit and to build in those commuting patterns when they're younger. So that way they develop and grow those patterns when they're adults. As you all may know, it is a lot easier to learn a behavior or a pattern when you are younger. And it's a lot less scary to figure out how to ride the bus when you are younger and in school. I know the first time that I took the Flatiron Flyer with my Eco-Pass, I was terrified that I was doing it wrong. I want to avoid that by getting more students and more young people on the bus and the train earlier when they have that confidence to ride. So yes, Zero Fare for Better Air summer. I totally skipped that slide. Oh well. So we doubled our reach for 2023. In August of 2022, we just did 1 month of no cost rides on our services. This year we did 2 months, so we doubled it. We partnered with our wonderful colleagues at Boulder Transportation Connections to do various events like Bike to Work Day, and Transit Day as a way to encourage more people to take transit and combine those events. We hosted station activities as well as community events and festivals to really drum up that interest. And because of our partnership with the local TMA and other community partners, we were really able to increase our reach and awareness of the campaign this year. And our team is currently working on a report that will be provided no later than the end of October for the Board of Directors in the Colorado Energy Office that will talk about ridership statistics. I can just say anecdotally that the weekend of Taylor Swift was our busiest weekend of all time. I saw the photos of people on the buses and the trains at Empower Field, and it was pretty magnificent to see the level of people out there. So Zero Fare for Youth from September 1st of 2023 through August 31st of 2024. Anyone 19 or younger is eligible to ride the bus, train, paratransit, Access-a-Ride, FlexRide for no cost. This includes all of our services, so any of the ones that I just listed. If you're going to the airport, the AV counts, all of it counts. The goal is to develop those patterns when we're younger, or when people are younger. I'm getting older. If you know of a group or a school that would be interested in learning more about this or coming and getting a presentation on how to use the buses, please definitely reach out. I was just in Niwot yesterday for a presentation at the high school. I know I didn't tell you, I'm sorry. Surprise, I was in your neighborhood. So we're really going out there trying to educate people and give them the tools that they need to be successful with Zero Fare. I will add that you do need to make sure that your student or kiddo has their school ID with them, just in the chance that they look like they're 26. We want to make sure that we verify that they're in school and eligible for the program. Briefly, I also want to touch on mobile ticketing. So changes are coming to the RTE pass programs in this fall. We're essentially transitioning from a card-based system to an account-based system. We're doing this because it's going.
This isn't gonna work.
We're getting there, but yes. So we are trying to make it easier for people to have access to their mobile ticketing and their fares. So we've noticed that with our current MyRide system, where we had a digital or a physical card that you loaded with money. If you lost it, you're out of luck. There's no way to retrieve that money. And so we're moving to this account-based ticketing system that will allow us to keep track of the money in an individual account. So you lose your card, well, that's okay. You've got the money in your account-based ticketing platform. And so you'll be able to use your mobile app to get that money or to use that money. So all passes are going to be available via the RTE MyRide app and are available immediately. My colleague Teresa Rinker is the manager of pass programs, and she is more than happy to talk to you more specifically about your pass program needs. If you have a business or a part of the neighborhood Eco Pass, just let me know and I can get her connected with you all. And then pricing for 2024 is going to be coming up in the next couple of months for your pass programs. Questions? Yes.
Did we answer Elaine's question?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so the card is working right now, but we are transitioning away, so we're really pushing more people to use that app. So what? I will provide that feedback to the past programs. Oh, wow, lots of questions. Yes, in the back.
So if everything is going to an app, especially with like mobile device, how would that work with going?
Yeah.
Not necessarily have would that be able to use any other type of device or even like a card? Like how would you allow them to use it?
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something that we have definitely been mindful of, and so we are trying to make sure that for lower income individuals, a physical card will be available if they request it, trying to make it accessible. We've also found, through our outreach that people are worried about having a card and losing it and then not being able to replace it. So we're trying to come up with different ways to make sure that we get people access. So, yes. Yes.
So I just want to walk through that because we have a few new scientists that. Right, so they just go to the station and actually present something or do you know exactly how that works? Because we're answering all these questions right now, because we're turning everything over in our system.
Yeah, so essentially the app will have a dedicated QR code that's tied to that individual, and so they will just tap that QR, they'll load up the app and then tap
No,
the value.
people that don't have a phone.
Oh, the people that don't have a phone,
Correct.
yes.
No, I got that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, I just wanted a little bit more information on the folks that.
The candidates.
Yeah, I can definitely get that info for you, how that goes through.
So Will and I can help address that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
too. So we've been trained in both the business and neighborhood path program portal. Can you hold on a second?
Yeah.
Sorry. So, yeah, so Will and I, we can answer some of those questions now too, but we can also do some more in-depth, the two of us have gone through several trainings at this point on both the business and the neighborhood pass program. So there will be accommodations for that. There will still be, if you need a card, there will be accommodation for that. There will be an authorization form. They will still have to take that to the station to get a card issued there. So for people who don't have smartphones or for whatever reason still, like I think RTD is hoping that at least 89% of us will be able to switch to the mobile pass system. But there are accommodations. I don't think that authorization form has been released yet. That's still something that's in the
Okay,
works.
that's what, I was just wondering,
Yeah.
if we could walk them through that, so, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
that's
it's a small percentage for us too.
That's still to come, but there will be a solution for that. And one thing that I did want to say as far as the earlier piece here, that ease of administration, definitely there's some, there's the conversion piece, but once you're switched over, the ease from an employer standpoint and even from a neighborhood of activating a pass or deactivating a pass is vastly simplified. Because people no longer have to go to the station and get their photo taken and get a pass issued. You don't have to, except for those outlier cases where people don't want to, do it on their smartphone. In those cases, they have to go to the station, but otherwise, the vast majority of folks, if you're using the mobile app, we can turn on and off passes basically instantaneously. So it's very quick and easy. And I think employers, once you make the conversion, you'll find it to be a significant time saver on the new system. But there's, so there's no photo requirements. If you're using the app, there's no photo requirements. And there's also not any photo requirements in the card either, but you physically would have to go to the station.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, so then is the Nico Pass valid through the end of the year and then starting next year, then there's a Nico Pass that will be kind of the equivalent of a digital driver's license and you just use it like you use the old one, but it's on your phone. Is that how it will work?
Yeah, the Nico Pass should be, right now we're transitioning the employer, so the Nico Pass should remain through the end of the year.
Okay, and then next year, will there still be the Nico Pass, but will it just be digital, similar to a digital driver's license?
Correct,
And you
yeah.
just pay the annual fee?
Yep, that's correct. We're trying to also, by doing this and eliminating the photos and the different types of cards, we're trying to create a level of simplicity and also trying to reduce some of the stigma with cards. So if someone has a live card, it currently looks different than an Eco Pass, and College Pass looks different. So by having everything just a QR code that doesn't necessarily have an identity to it, it makes it a lot easier for us to just say, oh, you've got a pass program, as opposed to, oh, this person is lower income because they're on the live program, or this person is a college student. We're trying to eliminate that kind of stigma as well.
Yeah, real quick before we get to the next question, and people in the back cannot hear the question, so if our presenter wants to just repeat the question or summarize it, or the peanut gallery, that would be missing.
Yes, noted.
So then on the QR code, is the QR code what you have for the year? And then you just use that one QR code and it's good for a year?
Yeah, that's correct. So the question was, are you gonna get a designated QR code? And the answer is yes. So depending on if you're eco or whatnot, you'll have a dedicated QR code that you will use every time you tap. And then that QR code is tied to your account, so it will say so-and-so's name, and it'll have that as your identity.
Can I just say a little bit more?
Oh, yeah. Please do.
Just maybe to hopefully simplify it or explain. So personally, like, I have a barcode on my phone. This is my barcode. Right now, it's currently activated with my neighborhood. If I move out of that neighborhood, my neighborhood's going to deactivate the pass for me, but maybe hopefully I have one from an employer, but the barcode essentially, this is more with me, than with the, like, because it's account based as
Yeah.
opposed to like, yeah, so like I'll still have an account with RTD with my own email address. But if my employer, if I use my work-based one, my employer can turn it off if it was my work.
I don't think anybody, I think everybody here understands what a QR code is, so I don't think anybody needs to understand that. I think when I had a Zoom call with Teresa, she said that we're no longer gonna do unlimited for the year for neighborhoods, which completely changes the game.
What do you mean by unlimited?
So you pay upfront at the beginning of the year, and then you have basically, you prepaid for the whole year. And if that's the case, then it completely changes the ballgame. And then everybody now gets, it's a set price for everybody per ride. And it like, the Zoom call actually is completely with Teresa, which it seems to be the complete antithesis of what you guys are talking about right now. So that's where my confusion is she said it's $2, there's no longer a senior discount, which is $100 per year. And there's no longer gonna be, this and that, and it's that you just prepay at the beginning of the year, and then it's basically unlimited for the year, and then it's from now on, it's $2.75 per ride, no matter what, no matter your age, as long as it's 19 or up. And that to me was like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of bounce back from that.
We could maybe talk a little bit more about that, like, off on it, like, but that piece of my understanding is like, how they're pricing it, a little bit is changing, but that's been what's been in place for the neighborhoods for quite some time, because each neighborhood at the end of the year gets a utilization report of how much their neighborhood really used, and that's what, then dictates their pricing for the next year. So basically gets billed in arrears. So that process is not changing, but some of that, like the nuance of like, the charging everything at the local rate rather than, because it's not gonna be regional rates next year, but I can maybe talk with you more offline, but that's, the structure of it's not changing, that piece. And we're gonna go till 12:20 on this, and then we'll need to switch. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First of all, for low income people, they still have to have an email address. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay, well, let me continue.
the question was, low income people still need to have an email address, as of this point, RTD has said yes to that.
And we've been told that we should get them sort of bogus email address. Or go to Gmail, get them an email address. Okay, we can get them an address, but they'll never look at that address. Are you ever going to use that address? Do you think?
The question was if you set up and everybody needs an email address to activate their account, are they ever gonna use the email address? My understanding is that that's only used to activate the account, to get your barcode, your QR code. But once that's done, like,
Well, how do they do that? They don't have access to the internet.
if they,
These people
Yeah.
don't have email addresses. They don't have access to the internet. Because a third party might get them an email address, then they're not gonna receive any messages. They're not gonna be able to.
so I don't think in that case, if they're getting a smart card, I don't think they'll need to activate that. They would go down to the
They
station.
have to have an account, and
They need an email address to create the account, but if we're sending them to the station to get the My Ride card, I don't think they have to do that
they
verification.
receive, when you sign up and get your email address, you receive a message from RP to send that back to the coordinator, so the coordinator can activate your account. So somebody has to send a message back.
That, no, I mean,
That's what we
I
were
think,
told at our orientation.
I think that's more for the QR code, but.
Yeah, I'll just say that our lift discount is administered by Denver Health and Human Services. They through the Colorado Peak program. And so to apply for that, you have to have an email address, and we have that contract with Denver Health or Human Services, who will walk people through the application process. So if there's any concern about that, there's someone who's walking them and helping them.
Are they gonna monitor when someone gets an email message? And that supposedly gets an email message, if they don't receive it because they're not on the internet, someone's gonna be watching for that and contacting them and saying, there's now time for you to do something.
Yeah, that I can't speak to, but I can certainly look into that.
What it is creating sort of a fantasy that these people are not participating. They don't. There's a related question. Sometimes people use their pass. We have to find out if someone is using the pass. We have to look at what we used to do, look at what the labs can. We can no longer do that.
With the
The
new,
system doesn't allow coordinators to be one of the labs that
I can definitely bring that up to our tax programs as well. I'm not familiar with that limitation. I assume that
this is not very big.
she's not, for sure. Yeah, I can definitely get it, Teresa. One more question? Yeah.
Well, unless you've been hiding under a rock, you'd know that the state legislature and the city council have been trying to double the population of Boulder to get everyone who works here living here and reduce car traffic and stuff, which brought back to mind a memory of 5 years ago, we worked for taxable fax drives. And apparently we were passed over for our light rail and never given a reason why, and told to wait to 2030. By then, Russia, we might be speaking Russian. What's going on with fast tracks? Why were we passed over?
Yeah, so great question. Our team is currently working on what is called the Northwest Rail Peak Service Study. And so I believe they were at function at the junction last week trying to gather feedback. So they're looking at the feasibility of offering AM and PM peak period rail service from Denver to Longmont. So that's where that study is right now. If you go to our website, there's a whole facts page on there where you can submit your comments about the different alternatives and the proposals.
Well, I guess there's already a rail right of way, which apparently still belongs to the railroad.
Exactly. So yeah, we're working with Burlington Northern to identify if there's an opportunity to share that rail. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for your time. I will pass it back to you.
Thank you so much for great information. Yes, as we stated, the business eco passes are what we're transitioning, so there's time on others. We appreciate all of you who are taking advantage of those to ride rail or bus or, whatever service. Up next, I wanted to introduce my colleague Darcy to talk about few things coming up for us, September and October.
Thanks, Lane. Thanks, everybody. Let's take a deep breath. Boy, getting around by transit, by all these other modes, we're trying so hard to make it easier for everyone to get around more effectively and more efficiently without driving alone, right? This week is TDM week. Who knows what TDM stands for? We do. Transportation Demand Management. It's a mouthful. One of my missions here at BTC is to de-wonkify TDM. So Transportation Demand Management is a phrase that is often used by planners and engineers and people in the transportation industry, but it's just not easy to imagine when I say, oh, I work in transportation demand management, people are like, what is that? So here's what it is. In other places, it's called mobility management. So in Europe, it's often called mobility management. This is really it's a little more concrete. It's about how do we get around without just driving alone. We can also call it providing more travel options or choices. So TDM is really about increased options, increased choices for transportation options. In some places, it's also called least cost planning. The reason it's called least cost planning is because it's a whole lot cheaper to give people more transportation options than it is to widen roads or make it easier for more people to drive, right? It's a lot cheaper to make bike paths easier to ride on, to create opportunities for walking, and bring things closer together so that we have more natural and active options. So I also call, in my effort to de-walkify TDM, I'm calling it trips that do more. We can get, by walking, bicycling, or taking the bus, or scootering, we can get more exercise. We can get more connection. Imagine, Brandon and his colleague carpool today. We're trying to get more people to carpool, to vanpool. You can make great work friendships and strengthen your connections to your neighbors when you carpool. More productivity. Imagine what you could get done if you took the bus. If you don't live in Boulder, you take the bus into Boulder, you can get a lot done on the bus instead of driving by yourself. And more accessibility. More productivity, more accessibility. As we make it easier for people to get around more actively, we're actually making it easier for more people to get where they need to go. So if more people are walking and bicycling and taking the bus, that removes cars from the roads, makes it easier for people who have to drive to be able to get through, reduces congestion, all that stuff. So I call TDM trips that do more. Can anybody else think of another TDM phrase that gets at some of this stuff? Anybody? I was also thinking of travel. Let's see, what was it? I don't know. I forget my other one. Can you think of any other TDMs? Phrases? Doing math. What? Travel doing math? Yeah, but against driving alone. Anyway, it's just kind of fun to think about, well, trips that do more. So how do we do more? By walking, by bicycling, by scootering, by taking the bus, by using all these modes so that we can make it easier for everyone. So as part of TDM week, we're really emphasizing the Way to Go program and the tax credits that are available to employers for incentivizing use of active and non-polluting modes. So employers can get up to $125,000 in tax credits every year from the Colorado Clean Commute program, which was made possible by House Bill 1026. It's a 50% tax credit. So all the cost for any employer to provide amenities for active and shared transportation, they can get 50% of that cost back as a tax credit. So this is a really amazing program. We're trying to promote that this week. Questions about that? Think of TDM as tricks that do more. Okay, all right. Oh, great. Okay, and then, so that's this week. Then the first week of October is the National Week Without Driving. Has anybody heard about this? No. Okay, great. So this is a program that was put in place by America Walks and the National Disability Rights Advocacy Organization. And it's really about this, it's about creating empathy for everyone who is not actually able to drive. So many of us take the ability and opportunity to drive purely for granted. Like Elaine said at the beginning of the meeting, your car's there, you might just take it. There are so many people in our communities who actually cannot drive because of disability and other reasons. So imagine, what if you actually couldn't drive? How would you get around? We want to start getting people to talk about, well, what are my options? What would I do? And so this week, Denver Streets Partnership and America Walks, and these other national organizations are challenging people in our local leadership and also just everyday individuals to really challenge ourselves not to drive at all for any kind of a trip during this week. So not for grocery shopping, not for taking your kids to school, not for doing any of that stuff. So we will be sending out these slides to everybody who attended the meeting. There are hyperlinks in the presentation that take you to some more resources. This page on Denver Streets Partnership website is fantastic. Tons of resources and lots of information.
about the week without driving. This also coincides with National Walk and Roll to School Day, which is Wednesday, October 4th. Hike it, bike it, I like it. I love that campaign, that national campaign. So think of all the different ways. If you have kids, who here has kids in school? Some of us, okay, great. And so think about, again, work with your kids. How do you, how is it possible for them to get around to school, to activities, other things? Really challenge yourself to think about how would I do that without a car at all? So we want to know, what would a week without driving actually look like for you? So we're just going to give you a minute each to turn to the person next to you, talk for a minute about what would you do. Take turns sharing how you would get around without a car to work, running errands, tending your family, and then we'll just do a little report out after 2 minutes. Okay, so turn to the person next to you, share your ideas. How would you get around without a car at all?
Well,
So some of you can come up with a good example or how to get around another car. Raise your hands. Yeah, okay.
So we're actually planning, we were planning actually this week to start practicing with my son riding the bus. And so this is the way to actually reassure that practice, so he doesn't know how to ride a bus.
Yeah, awesome. So actually practicing before this week, the week without driving, actually practicing how to get around. So how to ride the bus, what path would I take? What would be my route? We can also help you with that. BTC is great at creating routes. What's another example?
Yeah.
What did you guys come up with? Just working from home, not taking a trip, right? That's another thing that we emphasize, teleworking. And just all the entire first week of October, you will stay home and not go anywhere. Right. So this is predominant, right? Teleworking is one of those TDM trips that do more because they prevent you from being in traffic in the first place, right? Awesome.
I want to speak up and give some kudos to Will, who is car free, so his response was, it would look like last week. But he is out and about on his electric bike all over. He was instrumental in helping us climb the functional Boulder Junction. He got signs all over the community, all without a car. So
Campaign signs for a child seat. And the straps actually hold like 10.
So Will's our resident commute coach. If people want to know how to live it free, that do it. He is car free and has been for many a year. So yeah.
And thank you for that. And I will shout out the tax credit that Darcy mentioned. If you work for or have employees that want to try an electric bike, it is a quantum leap in commuting.
Yes.
Especially when the weather gets colder. 50% of that bike up to $1,000 per employee is essentially free money on the table through this call out.
Yeah, so just in case people didn't hear, 50% of the cost of an e-bike is free money through those tax credits, yeah.
I haven't had a car for 24 years. And when you worked in Chautauqua? Oh, I volunteered at Chautauqua, yeah, it's right up there.
Yeah, awesome. I've seen, this is great. We have a couple examples of people who are already bicycling everywhere. Wonderful.
So we're fine.
Great.
The only thing with the roads, I mean, now that I'm retired, I can choose when I go out. But when I worked and if the roads are icy, I would take the bus. But
Yeah. So when the roads are icy, taking the bus is a great option. Exactly. I mean, this community is exemplary because we already have so many people who are already living car free or car light. Yeah.
To what you just said, we have similar definite stories, like we need to be advocating this outside the room.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, yeah, exactly. Please help get the word out. We'll be getting the word out about the National Week Without Driving. And it really is, I mean, it is about that empathy piece too. How do we treat the people in our community who don't even have the option to drive? So, okay, I think that's all for me. So I'll turn it back to Lynn. Thank you.
And thank you to that point about sharing trips like that. This is one thing we advocate for a lot. Within your business, if you have somebody who can help be that mentor and show other people how you got in, how you buy, if somebody's new to work, is there somebody who can help that person take the bus the first time, figure out that bike route? These are those elements that help those of us who are very passionate about this make that transformation for the next person. Speaking of transformation, I now would like to welcome up Kelly Majorana, and we're going to learn more about what is happening with Highway 7. So what's really exciting, you know, we already mentioned a little bit about Highway 119. It has well gone away on a multimodal and bus rapid transit study. We get these projects done because Boulder is so excellent about planning, so about getting things in place early, and we are on the early steps of this. So I'm stalling you now to get set up, but you know, I'm really excited to be learning more about this process and look at that beautiful board. So I will hand you microphone and forward.
Perfect, thank you.
It's better. There it is.
Okay. That's all right.
Thank you everyone for having us. We're super excited to be able to share the State Highway 7 project with you, what's going on. We also have a few experts in the room that can answer additional questions if you have them. So I'm Kelly Majorana. I work in Miller Engineering. We're a consultant on the project on several aspects of it. So today I'm going to really be talking about the corridor-wide focus, what we're doing. We have a really long corridor. You'll see there's lots of different parts and pieces. So just hang on, hang with me, and we're going to go through kind of what the corridor is doing as a whole, and then break it down into what's going on in this community, and then how you can get more information, the most important. So the CO7 corridor, the planning pieces of it have been going on for a really long time. There's been a lot of early studies that have been done by several different agencies, CDOT, Boulder, and the local agencies combined have done several different studies. So at this point, what we're doing is really combining the efforts of all the information that's already been gathered and starting to put it together as one plan. So CO7, when I talk about it, really goes from Brighton to Boulder. And that was an intentional naming of it, really, because a lot of the focus, a lot of times goes from west to east. If you're a transportation person, this makes you absolutely crazy. All the engineers want to change the name around. I'm like, you can't. They have this intentionally named this way, really for encompassing that this is a full understanding of the corridor, the needs of the entire corridor. So it's a 25-mile corridor that goes from Brighton to Boulder. And you can see from neither map, both maps, one map. We'll just pop on the board. the corridor is broken up into different segments, and a lot of that is because it is a 25-mile corridor. There's lots of parts and pieces that have to be studied. And you have different agencies, you have different CDOT regions that are in charge of all these different segments. So when we talk about the different segments that are located here, there we go. We're back up. Sorry, was that me? Did I do that? No. Okay. The segment A is what we call the Boulder section, 28th to 63rd Street. And then it continues all the way along, all the way till M. So lots of planning efforts, but really our goal now is to figure out how do we bring this whole system together? How do we understand the demands that you've talked about? What are the demands on the roadway? How do we keep mobility as a focus for the corridor? Like I talked about, there's a lot of different agencies involved. You can imagine going 25 miles. We've got local agencies, we've got interested parties, we've got organizations that all want to be part of this process, and that's what's going to make it happen. As you know, transportation funding is limited. We're always asking for dollars. The only way to do it is to get all the partners involved and have people do their part to bring money to the corridor, to bring excitement to the corridor, to bring the needs of the corridor forward, so we can say, yes, we do have people that bike along here, people that walk along here, people that e-bike along here. What is the new need for that? So really understanding what are the needs of the corridor and how are we going to move people along here takes all of these organizations. As part of the CO7, there's a coalition set up. So all of these are members of the coalition. They meet quarterly. I think it's quarterly, I think it's quarterly, yes, quarterly, to discuss the project, what's going on, what's the most recent piece that is going into construction or planning, just so we know, none of this corridor, at least for the CO7 portion of it, has any construction planning. So anything we're talking about now is really in the early planning stages, which is where everyone should be getting involved, right? You want to know what's going on with the planning, how are decisions made? But a lot of people, when we start talking about projects, want to know when's it going to construction. No construction schedule yet. So everything really now is just in the planning stages. If you're seeing construction out on the corridor, it's early action projects. Sometimes it's a maintenance project. Sometimes it's an overlay project. Things to keep the corridor maintained, functioning, so you can continue to use it, but not really part of this overall multimodal effort that we are focusing on now. That's another piece of this that's really, really important. You can see the name of the project is the CO7 Multimodal Corridor, and that's really important for us to keep in the title, to keep in front of people. All of these segments are looking to be multimodal and incorporating those multimodal elements into every piece as you go from one end to the other, so that you can have a seamless trip no matter how you want to make that trip. So what I'm going to talk about now are the corridor-wide efforts. So you can imagine if we have several. No, that one was me. That was me. Stand still, don't touch anything. That should be the rule for me. I might have done it with this one. You can imagine if we have different local agencies working on different projects, we have different organizations, we have different people. How does everyone get this to coordinate, right? So the overall corridor communications, the overall corridor implementation has to be done at that level. So there's been several documents that have been created in order for us to be able to say, if you're doing a project in this area, these are the corridor guidelines we would like you to follow. So one of these is the multimodal vision. What are we looking for as part of multimodal? How are we assessing how people would like to get around, right? We would like people to use bus if that's an option. We'd like people to be able to walk, be able to drive, whatever their corridor option is, making that available. So one thing they are looking at is getting bus from one end to the next, which is not easy. There are some local trips that are being done now, but how do we get a full transportation system that allows for bus to go all the way across with priority if that's available? And so as we start to implement some of these projects, bus lanes are being looked at, Q-jump lanes are being looked at, stations are being looked at, so that we can have a seamless trip. So each one of these is doing that. Other things that are being looked at, and you can see that under corridor infrastructure, our roadway widening if we need it in some areas to accommodate some of these features. A multi-use path, preferably on both sides if we can. Sometimes we have constraints where we have to move to one side. But really making this an opportunity for all different users to go across and implementing that across the entire 25 miles. And then, as I mentioned, under the BRT, and it's really not BRT at this point, right? We're just accommodating bus. But really looking at what are our land uses? Are there areas that really need to have some bus operations? I know that there's a new senior center going in. They would definitely benefit from that. So where are we putting stations? And then how are we supporting this with micro-mobility, right? So allowing the local agencies too to jump in and support that process with being able to make connections to the CO7 corridor, because once you're on the CO7 corridor, where do you go, right? And so you want to be able to get to your destination. So that's what they call a micro-mobility and moving off the corridor with different modes. I don't know if any of you know, but Boulder County was awarded a grant in conjunction with the CO7 Coalition for the bus starter service, sorry. And it's not called BRT at this point because really we need to show the need, right? So this is a service that's going to start to be implemented as soon as they can. They're starting to put it into work so that we can get the grant moving and use it. But once we start to prove that this is a great service along CO7, then we can start to implement the BRT portion of it. But this one gives you all the different facts about, you know, what is BRT going to do for this corridor? What do we expect the number of trips to be? And how much traffic is that going to take off the corridor? And some of the specifics on here are on this slide. I also wanted to mention that Mackenzie, who came with me, she's in the back, has tons of fact sheets, and we'll get into those about all the pieces of the corridor. But one of them is on bus rapid transit, what the goals for the corridor are, and then specifically how this starter services is going to be implemented over time. Oops. No. Bicycle treatment guide. Again, we talked about having a multimodal system, right? Being able to put in a multi-use path on both sides. This bicycle treatment guide was created as people start to implement projects of how would we implement a bike system or a multi-path system so that it's consistent and all the way down the corridor. So this is really for our design engineers as they get into it and they're like, I have to do what? And you're like, yeah, I need you to put this in. And they're like, how? Right here. Look at, we've come up with a guide for you. So it gives them the spacing. How do we make intersections more safe so that people can cross and be more visible to traffic? So this is really one of those guidance documents that was done for the whole corridor. So as projects get implemented, we have consistency throughout. Technology. We talked a lot about technology. Just because you probably don't see it every day, but it's really important to you. It's how you move more efficiently across a corridor, and you probably don't even know it. Your signal timing, how we move information along the corridor. So if we can start implementing that now with all of these projects that are going in, we have a lot better opportunity for information collection and information transfer. So we have the technology deployment plan, which helps with that. It allows people to see where we can start making transitions, where we need additional operations, and where we have issues in the corridor. So this again is just another piece that if you're not thinking about it ahead of time, you miss it. And you're like, oh, why didn't we put fiber in here? We could have really used that. Nope, we're not gonna miss it on this project. Putting this in now as we're digging up roads, so we don't have to go back later, but this allows really for a lot more connectivity between different modes when we need it. This was not good. All right. And then the last piece that has been developed, which has been really helpful as we're going through this planning process, is the corridor-wide planning tool. And instead of having all of these different projects going out there and look at different data, different traffic numbers, there was a development of a planning tool that allowed you to go in and look at what is land use doing? How is that going to impact trips on the corridor? And so all of the planning and people who are working on the planning piece of it, like I said, we're still in planning, are using this tool to look at those trips, to look at what the demand is gonna be. The nice part is they worked with each of the local agencies to better understand what their land use plans are, so looking towards those future 2050 numbers to say, what is your demand gonna be? What are you putting in? What big box store are you putting in that's really gonna mess up traffic? How can we plan for that now? So, using this corridor-wide planning tool has been great because everybody's on the same page across this 25 miles. As I mentioned, we have fact sheets. We have fact sheet after fact sheet, everything you wanna know. Yay! And we have a copy if anybody needs one. They're also on the CDOT website. So, I know there was a lot of talk about QR codes previously. I don't know if it was positive or negative. I couldn't hear it all, but we have a lot of QR codes up here. CDOT has a fabulous website. So the good news is that all these local agencies are working together, but we're housing all the information on one site, the CDOT website. So everything you need to know is there. The other thing you can do is scan this other QR code, give us your name and your email address, and we can keep you updated with what's going on the corridor. Newsletters, upcoming information, whatever you want to know, or you can ask us questions. Plenty of opportunity to call in, send us a voicemail, write us an email, and we'll get back to you if you have questions on the corridor. But all these fact sheets are on there, so if you want to go in and take a look at them, gives you an idea of what's going on. You can see that we focus on segments A, B, and C. Kind of the early part of the corridor, yeah. These are projects that, when I talked about, there was a PEL done for the entire corridor, and these segments kicked off first. So they have gone in and started to do an additional study. They're looking at some preliminary design to decide kind of what's gonna make sense. What can we fit into the existing area that we have? Where might we need a little bit more room? And so those are the events or activities that are happening now. Along with these, there's some public involvement activities. Oh, I see that fell off. Too much dancing. So segment A and B are active right now, I'll say. And Mitch is over there. He's the CDOT PM. He is doing a fabulous job keeping everybody under control, informed. But he's got a ton of public meetings and public engagement opportunities coming up, all which can be found on the CDOT website. A lot of what we're doing right now is virtual. We just want to get information out. We just want to hear what's, what are your experiences on the corridor? Where do you use the corridor? What would you like to see in the corridor? So that's the point of where we are. And then segment B was the second segment. Segment C, sorry, I'll back up just a little bit. Segment C was done early on. It's a little bit of a different study because they looked at some of the travel demand on an opposite, or I guess an alternate route. And so that was a study that was done early on. A lot of those efforts are being handled by the local agencies. The city of Lafayette was really, really involved in that. So they're going to be coming back around to implement some of those suggestions. So they've wrapped up kind of their early planning efforts, but segment A and B now are really into the thick of it, really into the public involvement piece, which is where you want to jump in. And as I mentioned, the nice part about this corridor is that you do have a concerted effort. You have all these local agencies working together. You have a communications team that is working from Brighton to Boulder to get information across to everybody and to do it consistently. And that's part of our goal, is to get messaging out that's similar so everybody understands it and so everybody can access it. So I encourage you to use these to stay informed. Use these links to ask questions. There's a lot going on, so it's time to jump in if you're interested in hearing more about what's going on in these segments. And then I guess CDOT Region 4, which is where Mitch is from, that's this area over here. Those projects are going on. CDOT Region 1 handles these projects here, and they're about to put out an RFP or a call for projects so that they can continue doing that level of analysis. So you're going to start to see a lot more talk about the rest of the corridor. Fingers crossed, right, that we're all following the corridor guidelines that we set forth so we can have this continuity and seamless corridor from beginning to end. So that's where we are on the project. Would love to take any questions that you have. And then we have Mitch here who can answer specific questions if you have them. Do we need this circulation? Just yell.
Why would you repeat the question?
Okay, I'll repeat the question. Good. Yeah, go ahead.
You can go back to the bicycle facility slide. I really think, yeah, buses and bikes are what are really needed for this corridor. Down on the bottom right is the one-way protected bike lane, and I just think if you are gonna have a 4-lane highway, people are not gonna cross the street, go the other direction. So is that really on the table?
It is not for the most part. These were mostly examples of things that have been implemented, and I think this one example potentially was within segment C where they had a much more narrow right of way, and they were looking at how to implement some sort of bike protection. For the most part, the guidance is asking for us to put multi-use paths on both sides. Like you said, people don't like to cross over, they like to ride and be efficient. So having those multi-use paths on both sides is preferred, and then in some cases, we're having to move those to one side or the other, but making the path fairly wide for different, to accommodate all different modes.
I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but at one point you said we're not calling it BRT yet because we have to approve demand. Can you say
Right.
more about that?
Exactly, yeah, we would love to be able to just put BRT and call it good, right? There's certain requirements where they ask for us to be able to show that demand.
Who's
And-
requiring?
Dr. Cog,
Okay.
as part of that. So the grant is for the starter service to get that going. And so the corridor is being built out for that as a future service. But this transit starter service is gonna be really important towards working towards that goal.
How will it look different from ultimate BRT? Less frequent, like, but it's all the bells and whistles of being on a bus and on a BRT ride will still be there.
Correct, yes, that's a final.
Yeah, I can explain that a little bit. That's a-
I can't give that.
That's a great question. No.
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
sorry.
Let me make sure I heard it.
Okay, so the question basically is how will the draft or the starter BRT service that's not being called BRT, how will it look different or the same as an ultimate BRT?
Yeah, okay, great. So the question is, how will, we talked about the starter service, how will that look and be different than BRT when it operates? And I guess really to kind of help with context, so right now, what's out on the streets, the service on the streets is the jump. And the jump is 15-minute peak service between Boulder and Lafayette. And then 30-minute all day. But what this starter service will do, this will put basically a layer on top of that will be from Brighton to Boulder. So 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
Basically every 30 minutes. And it's like what we're calling it is it's a term that is almost a precursor to BRT. So think about, we need to get the service out now. There's still quite a bit of engineering and design and construction and funding that needs to occur, but this gets the service and these critical connections up now or sooner. It will build up the ridership. And then what this allows is kind of that ridership demand. When we go to BRT, we can go to FTA or the feds or Dr. Cog and say, hey, we have 30-minute service here out on the street. If we do this capital investment of stations, more bus lanes, more capital, we'll increase the service to 15-minute frequency or 10-minute frequency, go later into the evening, go on the weekends. And then we can justify those capital expenditures to come. So the good news about starter services, it kind of jumps where this capital, this capital planning and funding is going to take a bit of time to work out through this whole corridor, but we get this service out. And for really, I think the other context that's really, really important, especially in Boulder, is we've got BRT on 36. We've got it coming for 119. Here's the other kind of state highway that has a critical connection in and out of Boulder that, we're going to start seeing service here soon.
So here's my worry then,
Yeah.
like, to make BRT, to show that there's demand for BRT, I think you need to show, you'll have to encourage people to take it because it's gonna be a better than driving option. And what you're describing to me, 30-minute service, doesn't smell like a better option than the SOV mode I've gotten used to.
Yeah.
How is your trial starter service gonna be better so that you will convert the unconverted?
Yeah.
I'm not worried about fancy
Yeah.
stations, I just want them on the bus. And I think
Yeah.
frequency of service is really what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I think with the critical pieces, we have zero
Zero.
service between Brighton and Lafayette.
Okay,
So this basically, here we go, here's 30-minute service that goes up and down the corridor. And then when you put that on top of what we have in Boulder and Lafayette with the jump, it's good. I mean, we'll have some good. I was doing the math, what is that? I mean, we'll have 15-minute, 20-minute service within Boulder, so we'll get an increase there. But kind of the precursor is, it opens up this whole rest of the corridor beyond Lafayette, so this is, I mean, that's really who we're trying to, you know, let's get that on, that's a definite commute pattern in and out of Boulder.
Okay.
And then with that, we can justify and say, here's the numbers, we wanna take it further. We want expanded hours, we want better frequency, we want the other days, Saturday, Sunday, holidays. And, you know, really to begin to build up that ridership in the corridor as it's developing and, you know, to prep it for all those capital improvements. So, yeah,
I'm done having.
yeah, no, that's good, that's a good question, yeah.
So I like both things. What are the perks?
Yeah.
And let's get started.
Right,
with
yeah.
Brighton. And I wonder, is there a contractor already selected where something like Mustang has a bathroom with Wi-Fi? Because I'm going from Brighton, drinking coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Have a bathroom on the bus.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's like perks from that first phase that could be offered to you.
We're, you know, I'm worried about missing my bus, you know, if it was 15-minute service in peak hours, it might be more likely to leave my car at home.
This is a real challenge. You know, I think that's a good point, and not to, I'm looking at Alex in the back, because the county's gonna put this up to bid. But I think that's, I mean, when you think about probably a vehicle that would work right and service wide, we're probably talking those over the road coaches that are on Flatiron Flyer or Bolt up to Bolt, Longmont. And, you know, would that be a, you know, a potential CDOT Mustang route perhaps? You know, especially with it being Highway 7, so I think all of that's gonna be kind of at play and decided, but you know, it's really this opportunity that. You know, as mentioned, this isn't funded, the capital, this is 25 miles, there's lots of communities, we have a really good market here in Boulder, we have a really good market all the way to. Kind of along here, and here's our opportunity to get something out there sooner, build up the ridership, build up the demand, build up the ask. And I mean, those perks, you know, not only perks, but just, you know, just to make it convenient and attractive are so important.
Yeah.
Really to build the ridership, so.
You better start it and then we're gonna have to.
My question's about the equipment, about buses. Are you doing anything, or what is the state of looking at other bus ideas? I ask this because what we have from Denver to Boulder is not really BRT. These over the road coaches are slow to board. And everybody's got to pay on their way in. That really slows down the whole trip. Whereas true BRT has prepayment and a high level platform. I was disappointed that RTD called that BRT. To me, it's not. So to really get BRT, we need some sort of different bus.
Okay, yeah, I would anticipate that that's really going to be one of those design considerations once we get further down. Kind of into really kind of like preliminary design, final design. Right now, this is just kind of a preliminary concept, but once we get into the real detailed design of what are the capital needs, the infrastructure, the footprints, and then what are the best vehicles that can, you know, really, you know, work within this corridor and also just accommodate, you know, and welcome as many passengers as possible. That's going to be a future decision point. It hasn't been determined at this point, but I think just with the precursor, that's probably what that's probably what would work is something like that over the road coach until we can figure out those design pieces further down.
Okay, and I'll ask a question before I take it back. So because you're saying 2026 is a possible starter, are we going to make sure that there is a linkage between the Orange Bolt route that will be stopping along Arapahoe so that you can get on an eastbound bus? Because I think there's a demand for that for anybody working in East Boulder, living towards Loma. Is that something under consideration?
I'm sorry, Miss.
So if you've come in on the Bolt from Longmont,
Okay.
you get to Arapahoe in Boulder, and you've gotta go somewhere out here. Are we making sure that linkage is a possibility? Cause I hate when the bus comes in and the bus that
Yeah.
might have met left 2 minutes earlier.
Yeah, I would add, I think what's great about 7 and the routing, starter service, what you have is that it has all those great connections with other routes, whether it's at downtown Boulder Station. I think that could be a place for the Bolts for the future. It could also be at 30th, you know, or other places where we have northwest kind of, north-south intersections with what the spine of Arapahoe is, so. By all means, I mean, when we're looking at this corridor, especially in Boulder, it's not just Arapahoe left to right, it's really looking at those north-south intersections where we have north-south routes running, so that we can think about those transfer opportunities.
So just to introduce myself again, my name is Mitch Beckett with CDOT. I am the project manager for Region 4. So like Kelly has said, there's a lot of different efforts that are happening in this corridor. And one of the efforts is for our next application that was successful, which is a transit hub directly on US 287 and Arapahoe Avenue. And so some of those north-south connections will actually be able to connect to the east-west connections with this project as well for this transit hub in order for people to get off onto the station and then transit specifically to wherever their destination is. This is going to be local connectivity as well as connectivity for the BRT or even into Boulder or Brighton as well. So some of those buses that are coming in north, south, east, and west, that will be a transit hub for them to be able to connect. And that's with our partners with Boulder County, Erie, and Lafayette.
This is all great information, and I hope everybody knows Alex Hyde, right? There is also a project about 287, which, as you were commenting, so, you know, it's very exciting times, I think. We've got so many things we are looking at for the future, and guess what? We're gonna do our best to keep you all posted on these. So many thanks to Kelly and Brandon for presentations and everybody else who supported. Thank you all for coming. I do want to remind you, we will have our next quarterly meeting December 7th. Go-Tober is coming. Let us know about that. And as we mentioned, the Boulder Junction series, we have our final event coming up October 11th, and that will be a celebration of Electrify October. We're a couple hours. I'll have a lot more details for you on that. So thanks everybody for coming. We've got an instruction for that. Yeah.
Feel free to stick around and ask anything.